So, hi everyone, my name is Nuno from Sound Particles, and it's a pleasure to be here on this series on how to program a synth. Today we're going to talk about how to take your preset to the next level. Until now, pretty much we have covered the basics of programming a synth, how to use oscillators, envelope generators, LFOs, all sorts of things. But today we're going to try to think about how can we make our presets even richer. And pretty much what you have until now is the basics of your sound. You imagine you create something, you say, okay, I really like this preset, that's what I'm looking for, but now let's see a few details that can make all the difference. And one of them is regarding the way that you use dynamics with your preset. So when you are playing, sometimes you play softer, okay, or louder, okay, pianissimo, fortissimo, those sorts of things. And pretty much what we use is MIDI velocity to control and tell the synthesizer how strong are you playing those keys. Well, in some synthesizers, it doesn't matter how hard you play the notes, they're going to give you the exact same sound, okay? And most synthesizers, what they do is simply control the overall volume of that voice. So if I'm playing something softer, it's going to have a lower volume. If I play something louder, it's going to have a higher amount of volume, okay? Nonetheless, try to think about timbre. And the same way that you, for instance, on an orchestra, when they start play piano, what you're going to hear is, for instance, the strings, and then you start listening to strings and woodwinds, and then if you want a very loud passage of the orchestra, you're going to have also brass and percussion. Well, try to think the same way when you creating a preset. So thinking about these layers that are only activated with a certain amount of the MIDI velocity, allowing you to get a preset that is not static, it's not always the exact same sound, but makes slightly different when you're playing, and that brings much more life to your performance and your presets. So let's see how can we use on a synthesizer, how can we use the MIDI velocity to control some parameters. So in this case, okay, I have this very smooth kind of sound. What I'm going to do here is to bring a new oscillator, okay, with a square wave, and this create this brightness, okay. But I want this brightness to be activated only when I play the note harder. Okay, so I don't want this to be always there. And to do that, I'm going to use the matrix. And the matrix is a part of the synthesizer that a lot of people is afraid of, because it's a very strange part of the synthesizer, but it's very, very powerful. And pretty much what the matrix does, it's to get some signals from MIDI, aftertouch, modulation wheel, MIDI velocity, those sorts of things, or even other controllers like LFOs or envelope generators, and route that information to control certain parameters of the synthesizer. So in this case, what I want to do is to use the MIDI velocity, okay, that tells the synth how fast I'm playing those notes, and to use that to control the volume of oscillator 1, that oscillator with those bright kind of sound. So pretty much what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new entry here, okay. I'm going to tell, okay, I'm going to use not on velocity, okay. There is also not off velocity, that is how fast you release the note. Most synthesizers, even keyboards, don't use that at all. It's very rare for a synthesizer to have that. Nonetheless, not on velocity, it's what we want to use. So now what I'm saying is, okay, I want this not on velocity if I'm playing softer or louder, harder, to control. In this case, I want to control oscillator, the gain of oscillator 1. So now what I have, I have this control, and when I play softer, I don't get that sound. When I start to play harder, I'm going to have all of that brightness. So once again, I'm going to have this to control. So these curves, some synthesizers also have this curve editor that allows to exactly tell you how do you want one parameter to control the other. So pretty much imagine that this represents the MIDI velocity, here the piano, here the fortissimo, okay, playing softer, playing harder, okay, and this represents the volume of that the gain of oscillator 1. So in this case, what I'm saying is, okay, if I'm playing softer, I'm going to have a low volume there. If I play harder, I'm going to have a high volume of that. So now I play. So you have this kind of control. Also, some synthesizers allow you to control this curve editor and eventually say, no, imagine for instance that you want the opposite. You want an oscillator that when it starts to be louder, everything else goes away. So you could do the opposite and say, no, I want to start like this. So in this case, if I'm playing piano, this plays louder, and when I play harder, it's going to be softer. So, which is strange, but you never know what you want to do. So, besides that, we are talking about using MIDI velocity to control this. So, essentially, as you play, depending on your performance, you're going to bring new layers of the sound, and this makes your preset much more live. Nonetheless, besides MIDI velocity, there are other components that could be interesting for you to control these layers. One of them, it's actually the keys that you are playing. Imagine that you say, no, I want these oscillators to come on only on the higher notes, not in the lower notes. Or imagine that you are using, okay, I'm using this for a live concert, I only have a keyboard, but I want my left hand and my right hand to have different timbres. Okay, so you could say, no, in this case, imagine that I say, I want to use, in this case, the note pitch. Okay, so the keyboard to control, and imagine you do something, for instance, like this, and you say, okay, imagine, and if you do something like this, pretty much what you are saying is that, okay, on the first half of the keyboard, this oscillator doesn't play, only when I get to this side of the keyboard, that's where I'm going to have that oscillator. So, as you can see, it's over here that starts oscillator playing. So once again, be able to bring new layers only on certain part of the keyboard. Or imagine that you want to simply do something like that and say, no, in this almost like 1/3 of the notes, I don't want that oscillator. On the higher third of the notes, I want that oscillator present, and then I want some smooth, okay, things over here. So, and be able to control how do you want this. Besides velocity, besides the keys, imagine that you say, no, but I want to focus on how I want the modulation wheel to control that sound, or this additional parameter, because I'm playing, and as a keyboard player, it's not only about the keys, it's also about using these parameters to bring this live to my performance. So imagine say, no, I'm not using the note or the velocity, but what I want to do is the modulation wheel, or even a pitch bend wheel, and you say, okay, when I use the pitch bend, that's when I want this oscillator to come up and bring this layer of sound that I didn't use before. So in this case, for instance, let's see, modulation wheel, okay, and I said, okay, let's do something more or less like this. Okay, so now what I'm doing is, okay, I have this sound, okay, and I'm using modulation wheel to control. Okay, and you can say, how do you want all those things working together? So when you're creating the next preset, think after you think you finish, think, okay, I think I'm finished, but now what can I do to bring more life? How can I activate and deactivate different components and different layers of the sound using things like MIDI velocity, or the notes that I'm playing, or eventually parameters, controllers like modulation wheel, some parameters, some knobs on my synth or something like that. Because if you do that, then you will bring your preset to the next level. So I hope you have enjoyed. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel, and see you on the next video.